Hey everybody, today's video is going to take you through the kit that I carried on the West Highland Way. It's a long distance trail in the Scottish Highlands. It runs 96 miles from Glasgow up to Fort William. Highly recommend it to anyone. It's absolutely gorgeous, takes you through some amazing scenery in the Scottish Highlands. Lots of history, lots of misty, foggy areas, lots of beautiful loch sides. It's definitely worth a look. We went ultralight. If you know me, you know that I'm a big believer in the ultralight philosophy. Carry less, do more. Has less damage on your body, makes you more comfortable. You're less focused on the pain and suffering and more focused on the enjoyment. So I'm going to take you through what I carried. I'll put up the weights as I go on the screen and then obviously show you the total at the end, because I don't remember them off the top of my head. Some of them I do because I'm that kind of person, but not every single one. So let's get started. I'll take you through what I carried in the front of my pack, and the pack itself, just to call it out, is a Hyperlite mountain gear Southwest 3400. It's a brilliant pack. It's a framed pack, so you can carry quite a bit of weight in it if you want to. It has a foldable top, so you can kind of adjust based on your load size. So far I'm absolutely loving it. It's waterproof in terms of rain, so I don't have any pack liner or anything like that, or a pack cover. I've used it extensively now in rain and it's been absolutely fine. Yeah, brilliant pack. So in this front pouch I carried my waterproofs. First of all, I've got waterproof jacket that I carried with me, which is the Marmot EcoPlus, Precip EcoPlus, I think, off the top of my head. It's a pretty lightweight jacket. I like that it has pit zips. After having used it for the whole trail, so I've used it for 150 miles in total probably now, and yeah, it's not breathable enough. It wets out way too easily. The internal material on it is really clammy and you can feel it. It's not a terrible jacket, it's a very budget jacket. I think I got it for £50 on a sale, and I wanted to try one out and just see, but I'm going to be changing this. So this is going to go from that kit that I carried. It worked, but it was definitely not ideal. I don't recommend that jacket at all. Got my waterproof trousers. These waterproof trousers are the Arc-Teryx Zeta SLs. They are very good. They're pack-light Gore-Tex material. And pack-light Gore-Tex material has advanced a lot. It breathes really well and it's very impressive. The trousers in general I like. They ain't cheap. I like them. The only thing is I'd say they're slightly loose fitting, and because they're from Arc-Teryx's super light range, they lack a little bit of the adjustment that you would want to get them really kind of close fitting, particularly down at the ankles. So they're good, but I'm going to change these. Again, they're also a little bit too heavy. I know off the top of my head these are 250 grams, and I think you can get good waterproof trousers that are lighter. So yeah, those are probably going to go, but they worked well and they're definitely not a bad pair of waterproof trousers at all. I've got my Skinz gloves. These are waterproof gloves. They're very water resistant and they're pretty warm insulation wise. Skinz is a British company. They actually make some pretty good gloves. These ones I particularly like. They're actually designed for sporting, like shooting, but they work just as well for shooting a camera. They've got foldable forefinger and thumb, so on both hands. So even when it's cold, you can still do pretty much everything you'd want to do with these fingers, which is great when you like taking pictures, as we do. So I really like these gloves so far. They're not the lightest, but they are pretty decent, and they seem to have lasted really well so far, so I recommend them. Then I've got my suspension system for my hammock. We used hammocks, which is obviously not the most common way. Most people doing it would, if they were wild camping like we did, use a tent. We hung hammocks every night, so 4 nights we slept out, we wild camped with hammocks. This hang kit is from Dutchware gear in America, and it is their Beetle buckle suspension system. It's a really cool suspension system, and I've got it in a little DCF bag from Treadlite gear. That is a great suspension system. I'd highly recommend it if you're a hammock camper. And then I've got my first aid kit in there, which has got first aid and repair items in it. I can take you through that separately. Yeah, it's really useful. Lots of ibuprofen for long distance walks. And then I've got my peg kit. This is my pegs and my guy lines for my tarp. Really simple, lightweight, again in a nice little DCF pouch from Treadlite gear. I like their stuff. And that is the whole of my front pocket where I'd also dump extra things if they're wet or anything like that out there. Side pouches, I put water in here ordinarily. So normally I would have about 1 litre of water at the most. In Scotland you don't need to carry a lot of water. If you have a water filter, which we do, then you don't need to carry lots with you, and that works just fine. I carried one trekking pole. That is the Micro Vario Carbon from Lecky. It's probably a little bit heavier than it needs to be, but it's really tough. I've had this one for, I guess, a couple of years now nearly, and yeah, it works really well. I only use one because I tend to just find that I like my right hand to use a trekking pole, and I don't need to, and sometimes I don't want one at all, and so then I can just carry one and not feel a massive weight penalty. So it's a good pole. I might actually reduce weight and cut my poles to something different. And that's the front and side pockets. If I flip the pack round, got my 2 hip belt pockets. Ordinarily I just carry loads of snacks in those, and I'll normally put my head torch in there in preparation if I know that it's going to be getting dark and I don't want to be going into the main body of the pack. I also have in here my Garmin Oregon 600, which I've used for quite a few years now, and a little temperature gauge that pairs with it. I used to use this as my main mode of navigation, but these days, with phones being as good as they are with the GPS software, I don't use it really. I carry it sometimes as like a backup, just in case I want to, you know, make sure that I've got redundancy. But I'll probably stop doing that and get a temperature gauge that works with my phone. It's a good unit and it works well. The mapping is really extensive, but it's probably not necessary, and phones are just easier to use, bigger screens, easier to read. And then on the shoulder straps here, I've got a Peak Designs capture clip, I think it's called off the top of my head, which I use to mount my camera when I'm hiking and I want it out to hand. If your camera's in your pack, chances are you're probably not going to stop every time and take a picture, whereas when it's out here it's nice and easy and you can just crack on with it. And then I've got Hyperlite Mountain Gear's phone pouch on the side here. In the front I've got a little Spyderco UK PK, it's a UK legal little knife, really nice and light, always useful to have a knife with you. And I normally carry a lip balm in there as well of some sort. I like Burt's Bees, but I've run out of it. And then the phone pouch itself, I've got the iPhone 11, which slots in here nicely, and yeah, I use that for my nav and for lots of things really, like all of us these days. So yeah, that's how that goes. And that's the outside of the pack done. I'm going to take you in to the main body of the pack and show you what's in there. So it's really cool, with this being a roll top pack, you can, like I say, just adjust the height as you like. And in here I have my camera. So that's my camera. It's in a little Manfrotto pouch. I've got a Peak Designs little weather cover for it. They're pretty good. They're too expensive for what they are, and there are better options out there, to be honest. It's not terrible, but it's okay. And then I've got a spare battery and a charger, a little portable charger, so that when we stop anywhere that we can charge it, or you can recharge it from a power bank. This is the Lumix G80, which is a mirrorless lightweight camera body, and on here I've got the Lumix Leica 8 to 18mm variable lens. Me and Megs both carry a camera. She's shooting on the other one right now. Good thing to recommend if you're in wet climates, take a little silica gel and pop it in with your camera equipment, and it helps to absorb all the extra moisture. I also carried a little plug so that when we were in anywhere, like when we went through a town and we stopped, we could charge things up. Because of the time of year we went, there weren't actually that many opportunities to do that, and that was one of the issues we had, is getting enough power the whole time. But I think a lot of times of the year on that trail you wouldn't have an issue. But yeah, that's one of those things. I'd recommend, one thing is, if you're going to carry a plug with you, a plug adapter for USB, make sure it has more than one slot, because when I could plug it in, I could only charge one thing at a time, which was so frustrating. So yeah, that's camera gear and a little bit of electronics there. And I use these Hyperlite mountain gear pods to keep everything organized. They're just brilliant pods. They're made of this DCF material, which is super lightweight and very water resistant. So this pod normally would be stuffed with loads of food. Obviously I've eaten all the food at this point, so there's not much food in here, but it does have my cook kit and the other bits that I normally keep in here. A couple of chocolate bars for later. And then I've got in here my soya. This is the micro squeeze, which is good. People moan about the flow rate. It's not that bad. It's not the best, but it's okay. It's a good water filter, works, and the longevity is brilliant. I have a little case that is for powdered milk and coffee, or tea, depending on what you feel like. I've got a gas canister in here. I keep it in a little pouch because normally when it's dirty or wet and it's winter time, I want to shove the canister in this little pouch and then I'll sleep with it in my sleeping bag or in my quilt to keep it warm, or in the morning at least I'll shove it in to warm it up so that it works a lot better when you're cooking in the morning or the night. And then I've got my little mini cook kit here, which has a little case, and then I've got a trusty, I think it's a Esbit pot. Yeah, it's an Esbit titanium 750ml pot. I've got a Soto lid that was for something different, but it fits perfectly, so I use it on there, you know. You come up, when you've been faffing around with these things for years, you come up with these systems that you like. I've got a little Toaks folding titanium spork, a little mini Bic lighter in there, a little cloth to keep things clean or dry stuff off. That is a little tripod base for the gas canister, which really helps with stability. And then I have got a Soto Windmaster stove with the 3-prong stand in here. Again, it's in its own little DCF cube and fibre bag from Treadlite gear. Check them out, they're a really cool company. They make awesome little bespoke bits and pieces. So that would normally be my food bag and my cook kit with fuel. Then I've got another pod here. And this pod is my additional electronics and my clothes normally. So what I carried is Zeta Summit AEROS pillow. Brilliant little pillow. This one's getting pretty knackered because I've used it so many times, but they're great. Nice and light and comfortable enough, adjustable enough. I've got a pair of liner socks for sleeping in. I always keep one pair of liner socks nice and dry to sleep in. And what else have we got? An extra pair of socks. Always good to have a pair of socks to change into to keep your feet dry. I have got a pair of gloves, a little thin pair of black diamond gloves. I've got a merino wool lightweight balaclava. When you're sleeping in a hammock and you use quilts like I do, you need something to keep your head warm at night. So it's good obviously for hiking in general if it's really cold, but at night when I'm going to sleep I put on a balaclava, this thin lightweight one, and I'll wear my beanie over the top to keep my head warm, and that really helps with heat retention if you're a quilt user like I am. And then I've got a pair of Gore-Tex socks. This has been a revelation for me in recent times. I don't bother carrying gaiters anymore or even worry too much about whether shoes or boots are waterproof. What I do is go for lightweight footwear, and then if I'm worried about my feet getting wet, I will put on Gore-Tex socks. You can use them one of two ways. You can either hike in them and they'll keep your feet dry, or you can have your feet wet all day hiking. When you stop, put on your dry socks, put on your Gore-Tex socks, and then it keeps your feet dry and you can walk around camp or anywhere in your wet boots but keep your feet dry. They're awesome. Not for everyone, but definitely recommend trying it. They're great. And then I've got a little electronics pouch here. This is the NITECORE NU32 head torch. It's rechargeable, has an internal battery in it, so like you can't remove the battery. So far, a really good head torch. It's got a safety mode on it, pretty bright, up to about 360 lumens or more. And I've got a little mini lantern, little DCF lantern that you can hang up and add some extra light in the evening. Micro USB cable for recharging, iPhone cable, both nice and small, don't want extra long cables. Lens wipe and a little lens cleaning cloth, always useful if you take pictures and stuff like that. And I've got a little 10,000 milliamp RAV power bank. I probably would, if I was doing it again, carry a bigger power bank, particularly if you film stuff like we do. Then you could probably go for like almost a 20,000. It's just the weight penalty though, it's always a trade-off. But yeah, that's all good kit, no issues with any of that. I've been pretty happy with everything I've shown you there. And then I have like a little ditty pouch, which is toiletries normally. So I've got toothpaste. Normally there'd be a toothbrush in here, but my one was looking a bit rank, so I threw it away. I need to get a new one, sadly. Carry a little pod that has in here earplugs. a hairband, because I've got long hair, and a tiny pair of tweezers and a toothpick. Dead useful if you need them. And then I've got one little hand warmer set in case you get real cold and you just want to warm up quickly. So that's that kit bag. Again, these Hyperlite pods are great. I like keeping stuff organized. It's just so much easier when you're trying to get stuff in and out of your pack or find something. In this pack, in this waterproof pack here is the insulation that I used, which is an Arc-Teryx Atom hoodie. I've had this one for years. I've had this one for like 5 years, I think. I actually can't remember the name of it right now, but I'll put it up on the screen for you and show you the weight. And yeah, it's good, it's breathable. It's probably a little heavier than it needs to be, but it's definitely tough and it wears really well. And it's nice and breathable, keeps you warm. Yeah, it was just the right amount of insulation given the weather that we had on the trip. Right, that's my tarp system in here. This is an anti-gravity gear tarp. They're kind of a random little small company in America. Probably going to change this at some point, try and get a slightly lighter tarp. This is a sill poly tarp, but yeah, it's worked well. I've got a Dutchware gear suspension system to hang the tarp, which is really good as well. So yeah, that was not bad. Worked well, seeing as we had rain and it kept me nice and dry. This has been one of my favourite bits of gear in recent times. These are handmade in Jackson, Michigan, USA by UGQ Outdoors. This is their Zeppelin underquilt, and I had it custom made. They're one of those companies where you can choose the colours and the down filling and everything that you want. So I managed to, yes, choose my own selection, 950 fill power down, and it cocoons you underneath in your hammock. And that's what makes sleeping in a hammock so wonderful, is not having CBS, which is cold butt syndrome, where the wind takes all the heat with convection from underneath you. This stops that happening, pulls up against you, because it has a great little suspension system that kind of then lifts up and you have this warm down hug from underneath. This one's rated to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which is -6 Celsius, but I had it overstuffed, so actually this is probably good to about -9, so it was plenty warm. The coldest we had on the trip was -4 at night. It was actually quite mild for the time of year in Scotland. And yeah, it kept me so toasty warm. It's such a nice piece of gear, and it's nice and small. You can actually pack it smaller, but yeah, that is brilliant. Love it. My hammock is the Dutchware Gear CHAMELEON hammock, which is very versatile hammock. It has a full zip-in netting system, bug net, which I took off for this trip in the winter because there weren't any bugs, but you can have it on in summer. You can also interchange that with various other items. Dutchware have made it super modular, so there's loads of different things you can do with it, which is very cool. I've got it in one of the Dutchware DCF Bishop bags, so it's nice and easy to set up. And I also have on the hammock itself a couple of little internal pouches for storage, because that's one thing with hammocks, is there's not really anywhere to put things like in a tent, so you can get a couple of little additions. Dutchware do them, lots of hammock companies do them. I've got their little peak shelf and also a little hanging bit that you can put your phone in. It's a great hammock, really comfy, and I've loved it since I've had it. And then the last thing at the bottom of the pack is my top quilt that I used. This is a Cedar Ridge Outdoors 0 degree quilt. I got it on a real bargain deal, like off of eBay, just one of them things you come across and you're like, oh god, you don't normally see those on eBay. And it's a brilliant top quilt, really high quality downfill, very lightweight for the warmth that it has. It kept me super toasty warm the whole time. In fact, I haven't been able to actually push this yet, given how warm it is. I highly recommend trying quilts to anyone who hasn't. It's definitely a revelation. If you're someone who wants to reduce the weight that you're carrying when you're out hiking and camping, then definitely start looking at quilts at some point. I would recommend it, definitely. And that's pretty much everything. Well, that is everything. That's all the gear that I carried with me. There's literally nothing else that I took. That was the lot. So yeah, everything worked out pretty well overall. We didn't have any major failures or any major issues. The hammocks were brilliant. We found places to camp every night, so no concerns on that front, which I think people would not necessarily think that there would be places to hang, but there's so many trees around in Scotland, particularly on that route, the West Highland Way. My main call outs that I would change The waterproof jacket from Marmot, just not breathable enough. You know, you get what you pay for at the end of the day, and that needs to change. It's not my only waterproof jacket, but it's my lightest one, and I'm going to change it out. And yeah, my waterproof trousers, I'm going to definitely go for something a bit lighter too, to cut some weight. But that's the gear that I carried with me on that trip. I'll show you the full weight here somewhere so that you can check it out and see. It was pretty lightweight throughout the trip. The food I carried varied depending on the stage of the journey, but we always had at least a day or two's worth of food with us because of the time of year. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry if it was too long. And if you've got any questions, ask us in the comments. Hit us up on Instagram at Outdoor Intrigue. And yeah, subscribe, please like it if you enjoyed, and we'll make more videos for you coming up.